Why, hello there. YouTube commenter Meltrust asked me a question about whether or not it might be fun, or a good idea even, to put Queen of the Dreadsea into a D-shift deck. And I decided to see if that would work, because hey, someone asked a question and, you know, it's fun to do. So here we are. Now I'm running Chimera Shift here. It's pretty much the same deck list as before, just a couple of things were removed to make room for Queen of the Dreadsea as an emergency last resort to pull a nice zero-cost D-shift, but more realistically, it's for getting a zero-cost Loki and a zero-cost Giant Chimera, so you can plop them down at the same time. But enough prattling on. Let's see what happens when you play the deck. Alright, we're gonna open with a match we win, then we're gonna see 2 examples of how you're likely to lose, and then we'll end with another example of how this deck works. 2 wins, 2 losses. Helpful for learning. Our first opponent will be Shadow. And here in the A2, A3 ranks, this is what I see a lot of. A lot of Atomeme. We do unfortunately have an opening hand that does not have Chimera or D-Shift, but thanks to Chain of Calling, we can make that Giant Chimera appear. Or if you're unlucky, Merlin will appear. But we got lucky. And we got our D-Shifts, and now all that's left is to Spell Boost into Oblivion. Now you'll see we're running Witch's Caprice, we have 2 of them in the deck. And they are very helpful cards against Shadowcraft because Lord Atomeme, who can show up at any time, along with a bunch of frozen woolly mammoths, can be pretty hard to deal with. Especially when after you kill Lord Atomeme, they play that card that returns the biggest minion they had. It's tricky, but if you turn them all into snowmen, it doesn't matter. Works well against other variants you'll experience too. Your opponent's playing Nep, you'll end up with a Mordecai. Mordecai can't do his thing if he turns into a snowman. So I find Witch's Caprice to be a very good counter against most of what you're seeing out of Shadowcraft these days. Excuse me. Sneezing all over the place here. Now we got our Merlin for some double draw and spell boosting action. Unfortunately, we are out of evolution points, so we can't spell boost anymore. You'll also notice that I'm going to mill. Sometimes you have to make choices like this. I decided that, seeing as how I already have D-Shift, I have Giant Chimera, I was willing to mill 1 card. The chances that it was a Loki or a Queen, fairly low, so I took a risk. Especially seeing as how I knew I could burn through a bunch of cards the next turn and start drawing. A lot of Queens. Hey, there's Mordecai. So we have 2 very annoying minions with death rattles that we don't want to deal with. So Witch's Caprice, the perfect spell for the situation. And we'll just go ahead and ping that away. So now we have a D-Shift ready to go. 2 D-Shifts ready to go, really. Which is good. Given the pile of stuff that just had hit the table here. Well, actually, not really all that much at the table. Set a plan here. Just D-shift a few times. Hey! We D-shifted right into the perfect scenario where Queen of the Dread Sea can turn a Loki and a Chimera into zero-cost cards. And thanks to Loki, it doubles up, and we win. So yeah, that's a good example of how this deck works. We didn't have Loki until turn 10, which would really slow us down if we wanted to double up. Chimera wasn't enough to win on its own. We didn't really have any other win conditions in our hand for D-shift to work with besides the one Chimera. So Queen of the Dread Sea turned a turn 12 or 13 win into a turn 10 win. It's a great example of what Queen of the Dread Sea can do. And this is a great example of how Queen of the Dread Sea can fuck you up. Opening hand of 2 queens, no chimeras, no D-shifts. We have nothing to spell boost. Queen of the Dread Sea is essentially a dead card until turn 10. So if you have her in your hand before turn 10, it's a waste of a spot in your hand. And it can be very frustrating when you have 2 of them in your opening hand. That's all of them in the deck. It slows us down enough that it's hard to recover from this. It's a very dangerous mulligan situation. Especially up against aggressive decks. Like Swordcraft here. I mean, I guess spoilers, I already told you that the middle 2 games are 2 examples of how you will lose using this deck. So, now you know what will happen by the end of this. We were hoping Merlin would pull us into either something that would get us a spell-boosted card, or get us one of the cards we want. No such luck. I was hoping to draw either Chain of Calling, or just Chimera, or a D-shift, anything to help us out here, but no. But all hope is not lost. We did just get Chimera, and the one important aspect about Queen of the Dread Sea is in a sticky wicket like this, Queen of the Dread Sea can at least leave us with a big board and a partial board clear. Like, even if we only spell boost Chimera a few times, thanks to Loki that gets doubled, it's at the very least going to act as a board clear. And it'll leave us with a 6-6, a 5-5, and a 7-7 on the table. And if we have any evolution points, that could be a 9-9 instead of a 7-7. Of course, the trick is we have to make it to turn 10. The thing about D-shift is often you want to win on turn 7, turn 8, by D-shifting into your Chimera. Or if you don't have your D-shifts, at the very least, turn 8 Loki, turn 9 Giant Chimera. It's really a desperation card. It's an emergency card, Queen of the Dread Sea. To the point where I had 2 in here because, again, this is an experiment. I want to see what could happen. But you might want to just have 1 Queen of the Dread Sea in there. Or, you know, these decks work just fine without Queen of the Dread Sea, as the current ladder experience will show you. But if you're looking for a home for your queen and this is the deck you run, then hey, you know, give it a try. It's fun. It's satisfying to do. If it wasn't for the fact that I lose this turn, I had no other means of getting out of the situation, I would have won. Queen of the Dread Sea would have happened next turn into a fairly sized Chimera with a Loki. Unfortunately, I could not prevent this from happening. I needed my Winter's Caprice to get out of this situation, did not have it in hand. Oh, that's interesting. It's something I've never seen before, and a real bummer. So, This particular loss right here was against another D-shift deck. And unfortunately we can't watch it, apparently. I've never seen this error before. But just a quick recap. The issue if you're up against another D-shift deck is Queen of the Drift Sea is essentially a dead card, like I said, until turn 10. And even then, if you have Queen of the Dread Sea and not one of the other more important cards, she's still a dead card. You need the combo pieces along with her for this to work. And if your opponent's playing a normal D-shift deck, that's cards in their deck that are functional all the time. D-shift is pretty streamlined these days. Everything has a job, it does its job pretty quick, and you win earlier than turn 10. So against other D-shift decks, I have never had this deck win against that. It's just they're always slightly faster than you, since Queen of the Dread Sea is slowing you down ever so slowly. Ever so minutely. So, unfortunately, I cannot show you that loss, so I guess we're just going to go on to the next win I wanted to show you, which is against another Shadowcraft, because again, I went against a lot of Shadowcraft while testing this deck. But this is another great example of how this deck will work, which is always fun to show off. Alright, we have a D-shift in hand, that is good. Wind Blasts are dead weight. Ditch them. A lot of draw, that's good. One problem you will almost always experience with D-shift is sometimes you have too many cards in hand and a lot of card draw, a lot of cycle, and it's tough to avoid milling sometimes. So you always are in a sticky wicket where you want to hold on to that Fiery Embrace that costs 0, but your opponent just has a 1/1 on the board, and that would be such a waste. So you mill instead, hoping that you will not mill an important card. My personal opinion on the matter is, if you have the combo pieces, if you have your win conditions in hand, milling doesn't matter. You can mill as long as you're not going to risk milling something important, and as long as you've been spell boosting and are continuing the spell boost, the win conditions that you need. This is going to be a good example of having a lot of win conditions in hand and a lot of draw. I'm probably going to mill once or twice this match. I don't remember for sure, but just looking at my hand, having 2 D-shifts and a queen and 2 fates, the mill potential is high. Then again, you have a lot of cards that do that. Do a thing and draw. Generate a card. Evolution points don't matter, and I'm looking to do chip damage because while I do have my D-shifts and a queen, I do not have Chimera. We're planning ahead here for what may eventually be our necessary move, which is playing a not very well spell boosted Chimera. So we want to do some chip damage early. We also want to empty our hand a little bit, jeez. Winter's Caprice, a very nice thing to see when you're up against all of those little skull symbols down there. Personally, I'm just trying to burn through a few cards and D-shift sooner rather than later, given our predicament. You know, I don't believe this is an Anime deck. I guess I didn't choose one of those as our examples. That's fine, you see enough Anime on your own. Our golem made it somehow, that's nice. Gonna go ahead and threaten our opponent with bodies, that way they don't go face. Still, no Chimera. No Loki. No Chain of Calling. Upon our next draw, we have gone through half the deck and have not seen these cards yet. They very cleanly and efficiently cleared the board, which is fine. We're gonna continue trying to get a card we want. It was not another Queen of the Dread Sea. But we have been pinging our opponent down for a reason. Continue spell boosting. Continue drawing. Desperately continue to draw. There we go. So now we can D-shift. So this is a great example right here. This is the perfect example of what this deck was designed to do, and that is use Queen of the Dread Sea as an emergency win condition. Our Giant Chimera, not big enough here to win on its own, but thanks to Queen of the Dread Sea and a free D-shift, we move into our next turn with lethal. They concede because they could see that happening. I guess it's almost a perfect example. A true perfect example, I think, would be you draw your Giant Chimera, it's not very spell boosted yet, and Queen of the Dread Sea allows you to Loki into Chimera on the same turn, clearing the board and leaving you with a very nasty presence on the board in the form of a 7/7, a 6/6, and a 5/5. That's probably the ideal emergency Queen of the Dread Sea save. I did not experience that, though. That was the closest we got to that, where we got Chimera too late for it to be efficiently spell boosted, and Queen of the Dread Sea allows us to make that not a terrible play. It lets us double up on bodies we're playing and effects. D-shift is very helpful to also allow for a second turn to happen afterwards. But because Queen of the Dread Sea dumps your hand when you play her and only keeps one neutral and one class card, using it for a zero-cost D-shift is a very scary thing to do, because you'll end up with 0 cards in hand, you'll have an extra turn, but you're just going to have a 7/7 on the board. But if you've been chipping away, doing some chip damage at your opponent, and you have them down to 7 health, or if you have an evolution point, 9 health, then it still works. You would... Oh, excuse me. You'd zero-cost D-shift into a Queen of the Dread Sea, and on your secondary turn, you'd win using Queen of the Dread Sea. I don't believe it's the most viable deck, because again, if you just go for a normal D-shift deck, you're getting more consistency. You're more likely to win just going on what we know works, as opposed to taking a chance on the emergency Queen of the Dread Sea. And as an emergency card, you also have to realize that if that emergency situation comes up and you don't have Queen of the Dread Sea, you lose anyway. So it's really a very niche card, but it's still fun, and I gotta say, I'm sure my opponents are all very confused when we do the Queen of the Dread Sea victory. No one ever expects to see that card hit the table before a Loki and a Chimera. But I still think you're probably better off winning on turn 9 with a turn 8 Loki, so just boop boop win, as opposed to a ignore everything until turn 10 and double up on these two. But hey, this is just my personal opinion. I want you to give it a try. Let me know too. Did you have more luck than me? Less luck? Because again, I still think it's fun. I had a blast playing it, and that's all that matters to me. So 2 thumbs up. Fun to play. It's just if you're looking to win all the time, you're maybe better served with your more traditional D-shift deck. Me personally, I'm going to keep playing this a little bit because I'm having fun with it. Alright. Well, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.